Tuesday evening and it's 6:25 p.m. UK time. And this is a spiritual discussion program. I apologize for our late start today. Where our technology was refreshed and we are still, you could say, getting it ready. So apologies for that. Yes, this, as I said, this is a spiritual discussion program. And I'm Saad in Southeast London. And the weather here is sunny. I think it was a little bit overcast in the morning, but I think we reached 20 something degrees. So it was nice and warm. And Gregory is with us as usual. Gregory, how are you and how is the weather where you are?
Well, one is fine. Weather just like you have in London.
Very good. So, dear listeners, the program is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uptrushin. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is striving for perfection. Striving for perfection. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Uptrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Uptrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we are discussing tonight is striving for perfection. Striving for perfection. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as you know, I like to always look up the topic in the dictionary, the title of the topic. So tonight's topic is striving for perfection. So the word strive, looked it up in the dictionary, and it says make great efforts to achieve or obtain something. What do you say on that one, Gregory?
Yeah, well, thanks for this. It says make great efforts. That is in itself correct. However, it didn't explain how those efforts should be made or what should be making those efforts and in which domains. That he didn't discuss.
Right. I hear you. I think that's why you have to have the topic which brings that out. So let me continue. There was another also given in the dictionary, and I'm going to just read that as well, for strive, and that is struggle or fight vigorously. So is that also a good definition there? Striving.
Struggle or fight vigorously, again, requires great effort. But even then, it hasn't referred to what it is that makes the great effort or that does the fighting.
Right. Thanks for that, Gregory. So let's look at that now straight away. Who is it that is, who or what is striving in our discussion for tonight? Who are we talking about?
Whenever discussions like this arise, the need is there to first examine that which is closest to us, gross materially or physically, the efforts made physically, and then secondly, the efforts made in our thoughts, and finally, the efforts made with our intuitions. These are 3 different categories, 3 different areas, which should harmonize. Only then can one consider or talk about the real striving, which striving should be in accordance with that permitted the personality to even come into existence.
Thank you very much for that, Gregory. So the striving has to be, we are looking at Obviously, as human beings, that is already some, how can I say, assumed, and the direction that we are striving, or what we are striving with, is our physical actions or efforts and thoughts, and also the intuition. And you pointed out that it has to harmonize. So otherwise, well, you can see it won't work. So yeah, that's very important. And now I'm trying to think of the domain. That was the next thing you mentioned there, Gregory. So what do you mean, or what domain are we discussing here? Is it the earthly or more?
Well, there was, with the domain, one is referring to the earthly visible perception, or the, in the striving, one is considering in the earthly, using basically all the perceptions which are available to man on earth as the five senses. That has to be considered. And the striving in this earthly must also harmonize with the striving in one's thoughts, or using one's thoughts, which thoughts are really not earthly, but basically one would say ethereal or near ethereal. And finally, the striving which appertains to the spiritual, which spiritual expresses itself in striving through one's intuition.
Thank you again for this answer there, Gregory. Gregory, just if you could go on mute when I speak. Somehow there's an echo there. So thank you for that. There's one word you said there, Gregory, with regard to thoughts. They're not earthly, they're ethereal. And people may not be aware of this word ethereal. So would you be able to explain that, what you mean by ethereal? Do you hear me?
There is some noise, that's why I'm silent.
Oh, can you hear me, Gregory, now?
I can hear you, but there was some noise.
That's right. I'm not quite sure. It's not from my side, as I can tell. Maybe it's coming from the studio. So, if you can just ask the studio people, please, if you can just have silence there while we are having the discussion. Thank you. So I hope they can hear me. Okay, I think it's slightly better now. So Greg, I'll just repeat that. What I was saying in response to your answer about domain, you said that we striving in three areas, which is the earthly and physical actions, five senses, sorry, we should refer to the five senses there. And another one was thoughts. Just to, I want to let the people in the studio, please, you can keep quiet there. There's a bit of background going on. Let me just, excuse me, listeners, I just got to clear this one moment, please. Hello, listeners. We are back again. Apologies for that, the background sound. Just say my question that I was asking you. You know, you said that we're talking about the domain in which we are striving for perfection, and there are three domains that we are looking there. One was the earthly, and we said there we use our five senses, and then there's still some sound in the background. I thought it was taken away, and okay. And then the second domain is the ethereal. Gregory, you mentioned ethereal, which is where our thoughts are acting. And then the third domain is the spiritual, where our intuition is acting. So can you just say more about the ethereal? Because people may not have heard of this world of ethereal. Can you tell us more about that?
By ethereal or near ethereal, one should first consider that physically here, we ourselves are able to use the five senses of perception in the physical domain in which we are, basically earthly. There is the other part, which is also personal to us. That's our thoughts, because we think. Our thoughts, we cannot hold our thoughts in our hands, neither can we smell our thoughts, neither can we taste our thoughts, neither can we see personally the color of our thoughts. But we know, we are convinced we have thoughts. Our thoughts, therefore, which are personal, but which are not physical, that means they are not perceptible to the five senses, they exist somewhere, albeit sometimes in our brains, in our intellect. That area in which our thoughts exist, which is such that we are not able to use our five senses, but it belongs to a particular domain. These thoughts, one can say they are intellectual, but they are finer than the gross material which we have. That area, which is personal to us, which are also intellectual, that is what one is referring to as ethereal. Not completely ethereal, but it's only an approximation. That is what I was referring to.
Thank you so much for that clarity and picture there that you painted there, Gregory. Now, I think maybe I will move on to the word perfection then, because our topic is called striving for perfection. So I looked that up as well in the dictionary, Gregory, the word perfection, and it says the state or quality of being perfect. Well, that doesn't really help. I think I better look for another one there. So a person or thing considered to be perfect. Again, that is not what I was looking for. Yes, I got a better one now. The action or process of improving something until it is faultless. So that one is a good one, I think. Faultless. Is that a good definition there for perfection?
To a large extent, yes.
Okay.
To a large extent, it is precise.
Good.
You have a state being arrived at without fault. That means it is complete. So completeness without fault might be classified or categorized as perfection.
Right. Thank you so much for that picture there, completeness and faultlessness. Now, I must admit, Gregory, thinking of a human being faultless and complete, it doesn't sound real. In fact, the first word when I think of perfection is the God, the Almighty God, not human. So can we think of a human? Well, maybe because we're talking about striving for perfection. So it doesn't mean we achieve it, but we're striving. So, okay, I'm going to put it like this, Gregory. Is it a realistic goal for a human being to achieve perfection?
Of course, it is a realistic goal, for there is perfection within each species. That means there is faultlessness or completeness within each species. That being the case, depending on the species, as long as things are rendered without faults, as long as things are rendered completely, then within that species it is perfect.
Thank you for your answer there. Just looking at that, rendered faultless and complete. And you also mentioned species, like obviously there's more than one species. And they also have their own perfectness. So, okay. When you say render perfection, okay, let's start like we have got the three domains, the earthly and the ethereal and the spiritual. So let's start with the earthly. Because on the earth, it doesn't seem that you can really achieve perfection. We're always, how can I say, improving things, with technology, with in our lifestyle and so on and so on. So how do we define this perfection in the earthly world? What is the perfection for the earthly?
If you recall that someone might compose a piece of music, so, and in that composition we have the originality, and some others may try to copy that which has been rendered originally. Sometimes they get it right to about 30, 40, 50%. And we said it's not yet perfect. When some others come back to render it again as near as possible to the original, or it sounds like the original, we say it is perfect. So that could be taken as a very simple example. The same thing goes with one's striving, even while here on earth. The room for improvement is always there, but in gradual chunks. To make a bit of movement, a bit of motion, then you come to a state. When you get to the highest possible state, that is as far as you can go. You try to go beyond that state, you find that it is not what is expected anymore, it's something else. It doesn't make any sense. So there is perfection within given limits, as long as that, the originality is reached. That which is original, when then rendered, if it's completely And without fault, then we say within that domain, it is perfect. You have perfection in music because you listen to music. You might also have perfection in sight because you find the beauties, you watch the vibrant colors which some painters leave out there. You say, this is perfect. You also have perfection in one's physical appearance because, strictly speaking, deep within the individual, there is a reference framework which is perceived deep within. It is that reference framework that many refer to when they use this word perfection and striving to perfection. So yes, in all fields, here on earth, that are perceptible through the five senses, you arrive at a state where thereafter you can't go further. So at that state, within the species on earth, within the gross material species, one may talk of perfection.
Thanks again for your answer there. When you started your answer, there was something came into me straight away, which is that you were talking about rendering, let's say, a piece of music, which something that is already existing, like an original that exists, and somebody else, let's say, is trying to, in quotes, reproduce it, and if they are able to reach the similar level, let's say, very close level to that original, then that would be called perfection. But what about and then, sorry, just to continue, then you carried on further, and then I got the idea that there are, like you say, reference points of, you could say, assessing something is perfection. So, as I said at the beginning, it sounded like you have to reproduce something else that already exists to make it perfect. Reproduce it in a high level, let's say, that is equivalent to being perfect. And then later you were saying that there's some reference points, I think you said, if I'm correct, where you can now see something that this is perfection. So could you just clarify that is it a reproduction of something already existing that is perfection, or is something that you can produce something new and also achieve perfection?
That which you refer to as new, to a large extent, is a transformation of what exists, which has not been perceived before in the gross material. So when we say, oh, I've done something new, but the elements for it, the substances for it, to build that already existed. So it's as if there is a workshop through which one senses. It is that the sensing of that workshop where there were models. It is that which is the reference framework through which one strives. But as one can also perceive, there are a chain, one higher than the other, of reference frameworks in the different species. Therefore, we have a connected chain.
Okay, Gregory, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, I just went silent and I was a bit taken aback, sorry. So, yes, thank you for that. And another word you said there just now, there's a chain you mentioned there. If I again, I'm going to try to get this right. You mentioned there's like a chain of, is it species? I think you said, and um, which are higher level. Let's say there are species of a higher level. If again, I might be surmising rather than exactly what you're saying.
You're
So,
correct.
so basically, because at first I must admit you mentioned species before, and I was thinking, what are the other species? Is it animal? Because do we say we are trying to be perfect by, let's say, becoming, I don't like to use this word better, but somehow, um, you know, higher than animal or something like that. And then now you mentioned species again, and I'm thinking, okay, what other species is he referring to? So maybe you can help us with that now, Gurpreet. What are these other species that you're referring to in the reference framework you're saying?
Well, thanks for this particular question. Basically, when one observes life here on Earth, if you take that as the last possible precipitation of real life, even before one goes there, what one sees, what one perceives physically, one is able to use the five senses in this gross material, physical. So there is the physical species here on Earth, which are perceptible using the five senses. There is another species which are also of the material, which one referred to as our thoughts. Again, our thoughts are not perceptible through the five senses gross materially. So that is a species higher. So in that case, you find that a species is a specific type. In that specific type, one is referring to our thoughts. Our thoughts do sometimes have an impact on our gross material experiencing. And that is why there was the need to say your thoughts and your gross material activities, they should harmonize. And there was a third species, which one is referring to? The third species of one's intuition, which species is not of matter, that is, it's not gross material, it's not of our thoughts, but is outside of the gross material earthly. That species one may refer to as that of the spirit, which spirit is the inner core of man that activates the physical body. So one can picture the three different, alien to one another. In the nearest are the gross material. Above that are those of one's thoughts, and above that are or is the species of the spirit. The activities of each of these must harmonize.
Thank you so much, Frederick, for your explanation. I must admit, I was thinking of some living beings of a different variety to the human when you mentioned the words, when you were going to explain about species, but now I realize it was nothing to do with that. It was the, let's say, things associated with the human beings, as you mentioned, in the five senses, the thoughts and the intuition. So thank you for that
It's
clarification.
because the topic is referring to human beings.
Right. Okay. But it's always, let's say, you always have to be on the same angle, walking on the same road. Otherwise, people can get some different ideas. So
Correct.
thank you for that clarification. Um, I want to just let listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. UK time to 8 p.m. UK time. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And if you're interested to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is striving for perfection. Striving for perfection. That is us human beings striving for perfection. And you can join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Space live stream. That's for the live show. And you can listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Space Grail message. Space the topic of the show, which tonight is striving for perfection. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also again on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, slowly but surely we're moving into this topic of striving for perfection, and we've talked about these 3 species and domains that we are striving in perfection towards or using, let's say. And the beginning was the earthly, physical action, physical deed, so on. And then thoughts, which is happening in the ethereal world. And the thirdly is the intuition, which works in the spiritual world. And these 3 must harmonize. That's what we said. And that's the idea of the perfection, is to strive to become faultless and complete. This is what we've defined perfection as. Now, let's look at some examples, Gregory, of this sort of thing, world, you can say. So let me start with this one, Gregory. Idealism, or ideal, being ideal. And again, I want to look in the dictionary, what is ideal and idealism. So I must say, when I've looked at this up, I have to say they were a little bit strange in a way, but let's go through it and explore it. So the word ideal in the dictionary, it was saying that satisfying one's conception of what is perfect, most suitable. I'll say it again, satisfying one's conception of what is perfect, most suitable, they're saying. There's a bit more, a couple of other meanings as well, but let's look at that first, Gregory. So is the ideal, that meaning for ideal, how is that?
That is a helpful meaning. However, it lacks a basic concept which should give a full meaning to it, which is that of the framework of the laws of nature, or the laws of nature. I mean, all the laws of creation. So in that case, when that concept or expression ideal is mentioned, in which there is this, the satisfaction of one's, like a concept of what one has perceived. Even the perceptions have come into existence in accordance with the laws of motion. For as we all might have perceived, knowingly or unknowingly, motion itself is a law in creation, in nature. For where there is no motion, which is an impossibility as such, when creation is discussed, where there is no movement, there is no communication. The lack of communication, the lack of exchange, is the state where there is no life. Therefore, one must admit that motion is ubiquitous. So in that case, it was the laws, or it is the laws of motion that permitted the laws of creation to arise. Therefore, you will find that there is relationship between the hierarchies. That is what one was referring to, and there is a chain. At each level of different species, there is a state of perfection without fault, as conditioned by the laws of nature through which all came into existence. And as you rise higher, you find the same thing, a continuous repetition.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. What you've done there is add, I could say, a dimension, like you said, was missing. There was something missing in the definition of ideal. And really, you've, how can I say, shifted the focus quite a lot from how maybe dictionary and maybe general human beings are looking at things, that this perfection or idealism, it has to be put into the context of the laws of nature or creation, as you mentioned there, the framework. That is the framework that we need to look at. And again, you referenced the laws of motion as well there. So yes, we'll explore that further in a moment. Now, I mentioned the word ideal, but there's also this word idealism, and I really thought I should check that as well, since we're talking there's perfect and perfection. So there's ideal and idealism. So I thought, let me check what the dictionary says about idealism. And well, this is what I got, one of them. The unrealistic belief in or pursuit of perfection. And the example they give, idealism of youth. So here, Gregory, I must say, it looks a bit funny, but they're saying idealism is unrealistic belief in or pursuit of perfection.
The question one might ask oneself, why is it said unrealistic? There is reality within a certain species before that species came into existence to ensure, in the case of gross material, it's perceptible through the five senses. In that state, there is a framework, like an architecture, a model, which model came into existence before what we now have as gross material. It is that model which many, a sensitive individual, is able to perceive. It is that which is referred to. Even within the composition of music, many will find that the composer itself is striving to render that which he or she has perceived, to render it gross materially. And in striving, in the pursuance of that idea, one is talking of that which is ideal, to ensure it's able to reproduce, to render it what he himself or herself has perceived without force. So there is a limitation depending on the densification of each species.
Thank you so much for this answer and picture again, Gregory. What I notice, the definitions we find in the dictionary are looking at earthly sort of life and not really, I mean, there are words which are beyond the earthly, which mean more than earthly things, but the focus, let me say, in the dictionary seems to be on earthly matters. And but the problem is there, like you mentioned, Gregory, there is already an existing model framework that already exists before the earthly came into being. So, and obviously, most of us are not aware of that model. So the idealism, when they say, oh, it's a belief, or unrealistic belief even, of perfection, the pursuit of perfection. So obviously, if you don't know there's something else before the earthly or already there before the earthly, then for you it's earthly is what you can see. So that's, and when you don't find perfection there, then you think, oh, that is unrealistic. So,
well, if I may come in,
yes.
To a large extent, one can understand where they are coming from. They speak of belief for that which they themselves are not privy to, are not privy because they themselves have not investigated. They might have had, they might have seen to some extent, and therefore they speak of belief. Therefore, you will find that there is no personal conviction, which conviction comes only in rigorous examination of that which might have been reported, that which might have been seen, or that which might have been perceived using the five senses. Only when there has been rigorous examination of what has been perceived, only then will you have the movement from belief to conviction. From belief to conviction in the sense, in the gross material, earthly, there has been confirmation. There has been rigorous confirmation. In one's thoughts, there has been rigorous thoughts, rigorous reasoning, weighing and examining. And also in one's intuition, again and again, there has been weighing and examining rigorously. Only then can one move from a state of belief to a state of personal conviction. But then, these are the ones who strive for perfection.
Thank you, okay, for this clarification. Now, I want to look at some sort of other aspects of this striving for perfection. And we've talked about this is working in the earthly domain, the ethereal domain, and the spiritual domain, and they must harmonize, as you've said already. Now, one of the things, Gregory, everybody wants, well, I believe that what we are striving for is love, peace, joy, and justice. And on the earth, and even beauty, I can say beauty as well. So on the earth, it seems sometimes you can't really get justice. That's one of the obvious ones I'm thinking now. Perfect justice. So we're looking about perfection. And you're thinking, well, the human system is not really perfect. It's working. People make mistake. Yes, we mentioned about striving, and then sometimes, let's say, we are still thwarted in getting the perfect justice, if I can say. Sometimes the law is not even sufficient to really, get full justice, if you can say. So some people may feel they have been hurt, and and they get, well, maybe they get a conviction for the crime that has been done, but not 100% justice somehow. They say, oh, the sentence is not long enough, or something isn't quite right about it. So just want to ask you about that in regards to perfection.
To a large extent, it is understandable, because the way many a person views justice is based basically on the outermost manifestation, which is basically gross material, which gross material only perceptible using one's five senses. Therefore, they haven't examined further. At best, they may, using their thoughts, examine a bit here and there. However, their intuitions are not included in this examination, and therefore we come to the conclusion that it is not perfect, because in their sense it is not complete. There is a nagging sensing that something has not been added to it, that something is that of the intuition. Therefore, rightly considered, it is not perfect. These individuals are not privy, have not examined enough the laws that govern nature or the laws that govern creation, which law basically, or one of the laws, which will ensure that that which a human personality has initiated in nature, in creation, that is what he or she must then reap. So, that being the case, you find that they themselves have not reflected deep enough. Neither have they reflected on the other law of the attraction of homogeneity. Neither have they also reflected on that law of spiritual gravitation. These are the different categories which have not been reflected on in each species. And it is that sensing, because these areas have not been reflected on, that make them say it is not perfect. But should they, in their own way, reflect deeply on these areas, maybe it could be helpful. But above all, for some who are of the so-called Christian religion, who are not new to the Lord's Prayer, where it is said, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, then with the proper deep experiencing of these statements alone, that could be of comfort, for it will help to lift that personality who has been offended, who has been transgressed against, at the same time has done the best he or she can to forgive the transgressor.
Thank you so much for this answer there, Gregory. I think we're getting deeper and deeper into this subject of striving for perfection. You started with telling us there has to be a harmonization of the working in the three domains of earthly, ethereal, and spiritual. And now you have shown it there, that yes, on the surface, it might look there's not a justice happening on the earth. But actually, you need to harmonize with the intuition, and I guess the ethereal as well, for all of this to align, to become, you can feel that this is complete justice. Something that looks like it's not a complete justice. So all these things need to harmonize. And I think people can clearly see that most of the time, that is not what's happening in the earthly system of justice. They are just basing on the laws, the physical earthly law. If that's what somebody has done, then this is the sentence. More than that, they don't look at it. So of course, if you don't, then you're not going to get with proper justice there. So thank you for that sort of picture that you've shown there. Now, another thing. I don't know where the sound is coming, the background sound. Apologies for that, listeners. Okay, so I want to ask, again, Gregory, looking at the real world, you have this phrase you've used many times before: all for one and one for all. Or then other people say, united we stand and divided we fall. Meaning that we must work together, in the world, in the community, if you're going to have success. But we have a variety of human beings in different level of ability, also with different belief, with different, when I say, so many differences, let's just say it like that. And then you wonder, and we're told to strive for perfection, I think it's already hard enough to do it by yourself, to strive for perfection, never mind to unite the world. Perfection, it seems impossible there because of the differences of the people. And it doesn't mean I'm not even counting the good versus evil, if I can say it that way. Some are leaning to the evil side, others are leaning to the good side. So my question there, Gregory, is, can we have perfection in such an environment with all these differences? I mean, you said we can have perfection, but it doesn't seem, as they say, realistic, in such circumstances to have perfection. Gregory?
Of course, there can be perfection. Realistically, one for all and all for one is only applicable where you have those striving towards the same goal. If you have those striving not towards the same goal, then it is not possible to speak of one for all and all for one. If one might take mundane things, in the case of sports, in which you have two opposing teams, although they all play football, Team A, one can in Team A say it is all for one and one for all. The same thing goes with Team B, which is the opposing team, one for all and all for one. It does not mean that Team A and Team B, it is one for all and all for one. So one must get the concept right, where you have people striving towards the same goal. This same goal must be that of ennoblement, of not only gross material ennoblement, but also the ennoblement of our thoughts and the ennoblement of our intuitions. In that particular scenario, or in that collection of scenarios, you find one for all and all for one stands. Wherever spiritual ennoblement, wherever ennoblement of the physical, ennoblement in all fields of human activity is concerned, then that all for one and one for all holds. Therefore, it is realistic. As you can imagine, in the case where people, even in their trivial pursuits, in the case of sports, where you have a team, they work for one another, no doubt about it. So, if it can be achieved in such trivial pursuits, it is also achievable and realistic in that which is of spirit.
Thanks very much for this answer there, Gregory. Certainly it helps a lot to get this picture. When you said there's a team A playing team B, makes sense a lot. But if I give you another scenario, which is in it's politics, but let's just look at it. In a country, for example, there are two big parties, let's say, who are normally one or the other is the winner in the election. And they're fighting with each other for power, but they just can't seem to. Let's say there may be one or two policies they might be able to agree on something, but mostly they disagree. And sometimes, Gregory, the motivation is to win just the election that is coming, not really. Because I'm trying to think. I was watching a TV show today, a news show, and they were saying, "Oh, for you to really be successful in, let's say, election or something, you need to have a vision. Not 5-year vision. That's not just 10-year, 15-year, and even 50 years." The funny thing is, Gregory, people might laugh at this. They were saying the Americans, sort of USA, that is, they're looking for the 5-year, maybe only, or 4-year even, because the election is 4 years there. And China, where they don't have really election, they have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15-year plan, and even a 50-year plan. So they are looking like this long-term vision they have. And it's like they can achieve it. Here, with this so-called democracy, they seem to be fighting and not achieving this, let's say, benefit for the people. Right? So my question, that's the scenario I want to look at now, Gregory. Can there be perfection, striving for perfection in such a scenario where, because I don't say people hate each other, the different parties, but they fight each other quite seriously rather than work together. So in such a scenario, can we have something like a perfection there?
Of course, it is possible. It is possible in the sense that those who strive towards perfection must also be prepared to take responsibility. Go into politics and find out those who wish to take responsibility for the aspirations of those they wish to govern. To take real responsibilities. That means to deprive themselves of the pleasures, of all the largesse which might come with that post. Where are they? They're not there. So it already tells you it is the aim for power and not the aim for responsibility for the improvement of those who look up to them for the improvement of the conditions, maybe health-wise or financially, whatever they care to call it. So in that case, one can already see those who are crying out for these do not even understand what they are crying out for. For wherever some take up some tasks and those tasks are not fulfilled because of their lack of commitment to responsibility, it was they who asked for this task. Therefore, they cannot complain. The returns or the laws of returns must be considered. For they bear the consequences in the non-fulfillment. Which consequences will come here gross materially, or hereafter, or here again. There are variations. So many who strive into these domains and wish to really serve, those are the ones who take the responsibilities seriously, the responsibilities of the welfare of the people who are looking up to them for deliverance, or looking up to them to help in the alleviation of the suffering which these people are going through. One must ensure that it's not basically the aim for power, which power were not used in accordance with the framework, which framework made creation or made nature possible, then the reciprocal activity will ensure that evil, which they themselves have cultivated knowingly or unknowingly, will be the fruits which they had planted at an earlier decision. This goes not only for those in politics, but it also holds for each individual human personality.
Thanks very much again for this answer, Gregory. Again, it really builds this, proper picture of perfection, because it's all about striving, really. Striving for perfection is what we've said, and people are striving for different things, as we can see. So if you're striving for power, then that's not the same as striving to look after your people. That's something else. So taking responsibility, you pointed out, is the key there. And so yes, thank you for that. I want to let listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And if you're interested to know more about the Grail message, or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is striving for perfection. Striving for perfection. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And also to let you know, we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, number 1 again, space, live stream. That's for the live show. And you can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is striving for perfection. And of course, you can listen to other previous shows as well, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM / Radio 1. That's number 1 again. Gregory, and just to check with you, Gregory, we started the show about half an hour late. Is it okay to continue also another half an hour? I mean, beyond the normal 8 o'clock time to finish the show? Oh, you're on mute, Gregory. Okay, I think he's
15 minutes, yes. Beyond
15
that,
minutes.
yes.
15 minutes, so 8:15 UK time.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. That's good. So we are clear. Right. So, I mean, we really have been looking quite deeply into this topic tonight. Let me pick something else now, Gregory. Actually, the inspiration for this topic tonight, I got it by listening to another radio show where they were, I think somebody has written a book about calling something. Let me make sure before I make a mistake what exactly they were saying. The name of the book was The Perfection Trap, The Power of Good Enough in a World That Always Wants More. So that is called, the book is called The Perfection Trap, The Power of Good Enough in a World That Always Wants More. And that is a book by Thomas Curran. So they were interviewing this author about this book, and there was many interesting things. He was talking about what is happening in the world today. Gregory, we see people comparing with each other, for example, how they are doing, how we are doing, and like he mentioned the word more, they always want more. You achieve something and there's always something more afterwards. It doesn't end. And also success. So, I mean, mostly people are comparing success. That's what they're comparing. These people are successful. Have I got that success? And then what it turns to be like let me call it a vicious cycle, where every time you have to work harder, earn more, buy more. This is like how can I say, terrible pressure that it builds on human beings. And what he was pointing to, that we need to have something purposeful, a life which is purposeful. There seems to be some inner deprivation he's talked about, where people are looking for well-being, happiness, and contentment. But they seem to have got stuck in a trap of achieving a career, settling down, getting a house, starting a family, and if they haven't achieved that by the age of 40 or 50, it seems they have failed. That's how society looks at other people, as I say, comparing. Let me stop on that one. Stop at that point now. So Gregory, I know that is something earthly, that the focus on that book, obviously, but there is something they're seeking: happiness, contentment, and what was that? Well-being, which can be in many ways. So there's something like that, which. So Gregory, what is, when we say striving for perfection for the human being, what is the goal there? Perfection in what? And what are we trying to become perfect in?
When that expression is used, striving for perfection, there is that word perfection as a noun. Therefore, there must be something which is being perceived. The completeness or the area where there are no errors or faults that noun, which could be a model, it could be the sensing of an idea that drives the human personality forward. That sensing, or to put it bluntly, that longing, is what sucks the human personality to do more in its activities, not only in gross material activities, but also in non-gross material. For it is in the accomplishment of not only gross material, earthly, but also the accomplishment in our thoughts and above all in our intuition, the accomplishment, the realization of this perfection as dictated by the human intuition, which human intuition has perceived of a model or has perceived of a lifestyle in which there is a balance between the giving and the taking in the exchange. For he or she who receives must make use of what has been received and ensure it is passed on to others. These are the sensing which many have and they long after. These sensing, these longing are not basically earthly, they are non-earthly, and therefore it's in the accomplishment of this longing that brings joy as a reciprocal activity, that brings happiness as a reciprocal activity. That reciprocal activity which manifests not only in the contentment that this has been achieved, not only spiritually, but also in our thoughts, and also, albeit in gross material activities. These are the three different areas that one has stressed must harmonize. As long as one is lacking, you will find that many a person who pursues a goal only on the earthly side, having achieved that particular goal, subsequently will still become moody, will still become unhappy, because he or she, having received of this through his efforts, has not evaluated these in accordance with the creation laws which lies in motion, and therefore has not fulfilled that which he or she had sensed in accordance with the laws of creation or the laws of nature. So in all this, there must be that balance. Whatever one's striving is, as long as these strivings are rooted within the laws of nature, within the laws of creation, then as a reciprocal activity, joys and happiness will accrue from it, and that person becomes contented. Else, there will be no contentment, but a useless striving after that which is grossly material. And having achieved all this, you find that happiness is lacking, which may turn to a large extent to the injury of their health, first in a gross material manner or in a non-gross material manner, where the bodies, the model bodies which they have been injured, such as you find with some who, in order to achieve success, go about stealing from others. I mean, getting involved with questionable activities in which they are able to accumulate from the people so much gross material resources, and taking away from the people that which is supposed to belong to everyone. It deprives these people. However, they claim to be successful. However, you will find that such individuals are always looking over their shoulder, for they are afraid of what reciprocal action will manifest sooner rather than later.
Apologies, I was on mute. Thank you so much, Gregory, for that. Again, the picture and explanation you've given there about, you could say our purpose and how we function and how we're meant to function in our striving for perfection. Now, another big word that people use is success. When you hear the word success, automatically you feel good and grateful and, and again, I would like to look at this word success and what it means. I didn't bother to look in the dictionary when I looked at this one this time. But I will read out a fellow contributor to the show, comments, and he's saying the success is fulfilling the will of the Almighty. If we don't accomplish this task, we are but worthless chaff which the wind drives away. And he's referring to Psalm 1 verses 4 to 6, and actually I would like to go there and just read those out. Let me see. Psalms 4 to 1, verses 4 to 6. Let me read from the whole psalm. It's a very short psalm, actually. 6 verses. So Psalm 1 it is. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but they are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall fall, Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. So from what I'm seeing from these words, Gregory, in the Bible of Psalm 1, it looks like success means that Well, if you can have winning and failing, the winning is if you do the will of the Almighty, and if you are ungodly, and which it doesn't say, uh, then you will end. You will you'll perish. That's what it says, and you'll be separated from the righteous. So this is what I can see from there. So that sounds like heaven and hell, the ultimate goal of human beings, from what I can read there. Gregory, can you put that in the context of our discussion for tonight, which is the striving for perfection?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I'm just saying, when we look at success, according to what I've read from the Psalms, number 1, being successful is doing the will of God and, following the law. I think that's what it's saying, the law of the law. And if you are not, well, they call it ungodly. That means you can say, then your judgment is that you are separated from the righteous and you will perish. So can you put that in the context of striving for perfection?
Many a time it is best if some of these concepts are taken away from beliefs of faith. Why? Because in that case, they are narrowed down to the beliefs of the people, whereas success, as is to be considered, must be considered from a framework of the laws of nature, of the laws of creation. Therefore, you may find that someone who is an armed robber or a thief may be successful in achieving its aim. It is success in achieving its aim. However, one may also call this one in victory. But such a victory may be referred to as a Pyrrhic victory. A victory or a success which has been achieved in the violation of the laws of creation, in the violation of the laws of nature. In that case, you will find that there was no harmonization between one's intuition, one's thoughts, and one's gross material activity. The same thing happens in the case where you have people in their discussion in which their thoughts is not in accordance with their deeds. Their deeds are so much at variance, yet in their deeds, in their speech, they were able to see the limitations of the other personality and was able to swindle the other personality. Of course they have been victorious. Of course they have been successful. However, at what cost? Only when success is considered in accordance with the laws of creation, in which a human personality has sown a seed, which seed brings him or her benefits. The returns bring benefits which uplift the human personality. Only then can success as such be considered. Success that brings benefit to the human personality, gross materially, in thoughts or in spirit. The nature of this success could be in overcoming personal challenges, not in the destruction of others. Success in overcoming personal challenges, health-wise, education-wise, or even in everyday living, in the support that one grants to one's neighbor, in finding a way, challenging it might be, in helping to ensure that one for all and all for one, for those who have realized that the goal is unflinching towards home as a self-conscious human personality. That is when success may be discussed. Else, there are successes which one may classify as ill success, for it is looked at from a gross material point of view. How can one measure success or talk about success when the whole environment is so grossly polluted that many a person cannot breathe and it produces asthma? How can one talk about success when there is so much paper containers or plastic containers, so much being produced and yet does not degrade in good time? And you now have piles and dumps. All these type of successes or victories are pyrrhic victory, partial, incomplete. So one cannot talk about striving for the ideal with such. Therefore, when that word success is used, it has to encompass successes which is not only of the earthly, but also of the non-earthly, so as to bring benefit to the human personalities, such that it will be able to rise in accordance with the laws of gravitation that brings benefit to all creatures.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this explanation there. So much you pointed to in those words you've just spoken. Now, I'm just thinking, you said belief in other such matters of faith and so on are not, let's say, the key, you could say, drivers for striving for perfection and success. We know that even that we can have differences in these faiths, so it can be almost impossible to find out which way to turn. So now, Gregory, you mentioned earlier on in our previous shows about the laws of nature and creation, or the laws of the Almighty, another way to put it. Could you please briefly give us a picture of those laws?
Again and again, there have been the discussions in which one refers that all that one perceives, all that exists in nature, all that exists in creation, all of these are products of motion. So motion is ubiquitous. Motion is a law in creation. This is undeniable, For only through motion, such as we are engaging, will there be communication. For only through motion is there the exchange that ensures the human spirit is able to live in breathing in and breathing out. It's only through motion that the intake of food and the elimination of waste. This happens not only gross materially, but also in our thoughts, which are also in motion, and also in our spirit, which uses the intuition, inbound and the outbound. So motion is everywhere. This is undeniable. But there are basically two types of motion. That motion in which the end of the motion flows back to the beginning of motion. In that case, where the end flows back to the beginning, one can only perceive very clearly that there is a reciprocal activity in the giving out and subsequently in the receiving or the coming back. So, from that, one can already see that law of motion of reciprocal activity. That is basic in creation. That is undeniable. But that particular law also has different facets. The facets in which that which returns to the beginning only in the scenario that they must be of the same homogeneity. So you will find that here on earth, birds of a feather, they flock together. It is from this law that you present different categories where you have nature, you have plants and animals. It is from this law, all these you can see them. Above all, there is this law which one can also stress as the law of the attraction of homogeneity, or the law of the attraction of homogeneous species. And that is why in the flinging out and in the returns, that only happens in homogeneous species. So from the laws of motion, one can already see two basic laws. First, the law of returns or of reciprocal action, and then the law of the attraction of homogeneous species. There is the other case in which the end of the motion does not return to the beginning. In that case, it must have been that you have that one species must be heavier or must be denser than the other. In the case where you have one species is denser than the other, you'll find that which is gross material, which is perceptible to our five senses, is the heaviest, is the densest. There are other species which one can already perceive. In fact, in our thoughts, we cannot weigh them or measure them with our hands, with our five senses. But we sense when something is heavier within us, it makes us very moody because there's some heaviness there. Whereas there are other cases where we feel much lighter as if our feet are not on the floor because we are very happy, we are very joyful. In that particular case, one can consider in the ways of densification that which we refer to as gravitation, the law of spiritual gravitation, which has come into being through motion. So these three laws, the law of gravitation, of spiritual gravitation, the law of reciprocal action, and the law of the attraction of homogeneity, these are the basis on which creation is formed. These are the basis on which creation came into existence.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your words on the natural laws of this creation and the Almighty. We've come to the end of the show tonight, listeners. Hope you enjoyed the discussion on striving for perfection. I'm sorry we started late tonight, and so we decided to end late as well. Hopefully we'll make it on time for next time. I'd like to read from the Grail message, the foreword of the Grail message titled "For Your Guidance." The bandage falls and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and the prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God, Appreciation. And dear listeners, if you want to get more information on the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing all listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. So, dear listeners, I wish you also a great week and a blessed week. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, hopefully on time, 6 p.m. UK time, with another topic. Thank you for listening to us.